Thank you for staying with us. It's time now to take a look at stories making headlines on the front page of Nigeria newspapers. And I begin with this Nigeria newspaper. And the major story here says, fuel subsidy, Labour, federal government set on collision as Tinubu governors meet over palliatives. Review of workers' salary underway, says Akpabio. Southeast transporters, youth, CSOs threaten to down tools. You find all the details on the front page of this Nigeria newspaper. To the First News newspaper now, reps to probe fuel price hike, reject a reversal to propose palliatives to cushion effect of subsidy removal. Reps to probe fuel price hike, reject a reversal and to propose palliatives to cushion effects of subsidy removal. You find out the details on the front page of the First News newspaper. To the Daily Times now. Fuel price hike. Reps summon NNPCL boss. Marketers suspend probe. Airport concession nationwide. House motion indicts Buhari's government. Details on the front page of the Daily Times. And still talking about fuel price hike. Business operators panic. Fear shutdown, job losses. Hike to worsen manufacturers' woes. Many SMEs will die. Manufacturers Association of Nigeria is saying, and LCCI is also lamenting. You find all the details on the front page of the Punch newspaper. And to the Blueprint now. With latest fuel price hike, Nigeria Assembly moves to reduce civil servants' working days. Kwasu directs members to work 2 days per week, insists on 200% salary increase. Mike.
All right, I have the Daily Trust here. And Daily Trust says, Ganduje tipped as APC national chairman. Ganduje tipped as APC national chairman. Tinubu Shetima host ex-Kano governor, Uzodinma, 2 others. The progressive governor's back move. An announcement to be made soon. Jubilation in Kano APC. You find this on the front page of the Daily Trust. Okay? All right. Now, going to the Leadership newspaper. Leadership newspaper says APC national chairman. That's the focus in there. CPC bloc loses out as Tinubu settles for Ganduje. APC national chairman is the focus here. CPC bloc loses out as Tinubu settles for Ganduje. That's what the Leadership newspaper has. The Nigerian News Direct is next, and it says Presidential Election Tribunal. CJN denies speaking with Tinubu DSS to influence judgment. It says no one will ever be favored against another. Warns speculators, says rumor peddling would benefit no one. Okay, that's what the News Direct has. From there, let's go to the Guardian newspaper. The Guardian says banks, firms in currency risk capital erosion crisis as dollar hits 850 naira. Okay, banks, firms in currency risk capital erosion crisis as dollar hits 850 naira. That's what the Guardian newspaper has. And from there, let's go to Business Day, which is the last we're looking at right now. Business Day says tax exemption keeps Nigeria petrol price lower than African peers. Tax exemption keeps Nigeria's petrol price lower than African peers. That's what the Business Day has. Crude exchange rate accounts for 80% of petrol price. Marketers are revealing this. All right, you find all this on the front page of the Business Day. Veronica?
Right. Let's quickly look at this matter of fuel price hike, which is on almost a major number of the papers this morning. And talking about, if you look at the front page of the Punch newspaper, for instance, business operators are panicking. You know, fear of a shutdown, job losses, and the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, the Lagos State Chamber of Commerce and Industry is also lamenting. Everyone is lamenting, talking about the impact of the fuel price hike. And recall we had spoken about earlier how some governments, state governments have come out to say, you know what, we are going to ensure that you will reduce the number of working days for our staffers. And we also saw Kwasu come out to talk about 2 working days for their staffers. But when you look at business operators themselves, who are at the heart of all of this, the impact, how will they manage all of this situation? I recall that some time ago when we first had the first hike, when the president talked about the removal of fuel subsidy, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria came out to say that they will be forced to leave the country with the way things are. And SMEs are already, crying out saying, how do we manage this situation? What do we do as it stands?
Well, the point is, it is not today that companies have been leaving Nigeria for different reasons, not only tax-based reasons. There are also the issue of the cost of production in Nigeria. There are also the terrain. There are also the issue of security. Different companies have left Nigeria in the past. Recalling
ensuring that businesses thrive.
Yeah, recalling the 80s, in the 70s and 80s, and the early part of 90s, we had robust companies, number of companies here that were doing so well. But when time came, things became a little challenging on the economic front. The rate of the naira, the power supply issues, the cost of production, and so on. They started moving. Some relocated to Ghana, others relocated to neighboring countries, others even left for South Africa, and so on. So these are the issues. Now, we are trying to fix this and put everything right the way it's supposed to be so that companies who even were in Nigeria before that left can begin to see the opportunities back again for them to bring, because they made a lot of money in Nigeria after all. And then that is what the government is trying to do. But the reality is now is so critical that if you see companies that are still standing, doing business at times like this, paying salaries as at when due, you should say kudos to such companies. Because when the management opens their account books to let you know how much overhead costs, how much goes into fuel, diesel, and powering, the energy generally. How much goes into raw materials, how much goes into overhead emoluments, as the case may be, then you know that it's really critical. Some companies will have to borrow monies to pay their staff. Others will have to slash salaries for a period of time. Others will have to owe salaries for a period of time. These are all issues. Others will have to even downsize. Recall during the COVID, it became critical at a time where some banks had to shut down for a period, for some days. Others had to do half-day service. All of these measures so that they can keep afloat here and there. So government, in its own sense, in fact, needs to even say congratulations and even thank the private sector, some of these SMEs, for even keeping up at times like this. So we expect that government will come up with fast-track the palliatives and ensure. Recall that we were saying that everybody needs help. Everybody needs help. The magnitude of the help can be different, right? Even the richest man in Africa, Ganduje, will need help in certain regard. The fact that, we call him the richest man doesn't mean there are economic realities that hits everybody where it hits everybody. So the point there is, why are some companies giving exemptions sometimes? It's a way of rendering help and assistance.
Absolutely.
So there are degrees and magnitudes of assistance here and there. Government has to look holistically. So when we're talking about palliatives and then maybe 8,000 naira is mentioned, no, doesn't mean everybody's going to get 8,000. Not everybody falls in that category of 8,000. Of course, if they give you 8,000, what will you even do with it?
Fuel. I'll buy fuel.
It is just 0.00% of how much you buy fuel on a daily basis. So the point there is, if you give 8,000 to some people, it's like an insult.
Absolutely, I agree with you.
So if people fall in different categories.
They're in categories.
So government has to look at it holistically. And I'm glad when the president was saying we need to review this whole thing.
Absolutely,
so that we can capture more people. Because it is the activity that everybody is involved in that keeps the country running, that keeps the tax coming in for government. So the issue there is, if you see firms and banks and all of that crying out, especially SMEs, you need to actually go closer, speak to some of them to know what they're going through.
Of course. You see them put up these stories on their social media platforms, and you can only imagine because you're not wearing their shoes, so you wouldn't understand how it pinches or where it's pinching. But like you have rightly mentioned, the government needs to capture these persons alongside everyone now, every sector, how they can cushion the effect for businesses to thrive. Else, the impact, if people begin to lose their businesses, lose their jobs, we know that there will be increase in crime rate, and we are trying to address matters of insecurity and all of it. So we see how things are going in some countries. For Kenya, for instance, now we've been seeing that there have been crises. The protests
and
for 3 days.
Exactly.
On end. So we wouldn't want to have civil unrest in the country, for instance.
That will compound the situation here.
So you need to look at how to balance the impact of this and address it as quickly, timely as possible, because Nigerians are groaning. There are some who are saying, okay, we are waiting to see how the government will handle this. We are giving them